All right, it's been a while since I've done a video, and I wanted to do a video out of a tool out of this book that I've just been popping up lately, and it's the anatomy of a relapse. Like every addict, no matter what the addiction, we can stop. Our problem isn't stopping, our problem is staying stopped. So sometimes to understand how to stay stopped, we need to understand this anatomy of an addiction. So Patrick Carnes has this concept of this boulder rolling down a hill, which I'll just pull up here. And he talks about that when we're, when lifestyle's in balance, the boulder's resting neatly at the top of the hill. But it can start to move if we go through a couple of really clear phases: obsession and preoccupation, ritualization, sexual compulsion. And if you're watching this with an interest and you've got other addictions, just fill in the addiction there. It doesn't matter if it's drugs, alcohol, work, sex, it's the same. It'll start with a lifestyle imbalance. So there'll be sobriety challenges. It'll trigger euphoric recall, and then that throws up the impaired thinking. And the boulder moves, and there's another diagram Patrick has in the book, and it sort of puts it puts some percentages by it. So I'll try and hold it up so you guys can see it, right? I probably can't because I'm struggling. But the further it goes down, the harder it is to stop, is his basic premise. And so it'll put us into relapse ritualization, which includes boundary collapsing. We'll put high risk situations, or we start to put into high risk. Our coping strategies fail, and there's loss of control. The initial slip can lead to this abstinence violation effect, and then ongoing use, and then we're just despair, secret life, shame and guilt, hopelessness, pain. So let me take you through this. All right, I'll get this so we can watch it. So the anatomy of a relapse. Using the rolling boulder analogy, let us construct how the addiction cycle can reassert itself in your life. A predictable sequence of events occurs in relapse. These events follow the basic components you already know: obsession and preoccupation, ritualization, sexual compulsion, and despair. By following this cycle, we can create an anatomy of relapse. So in each bit here, I'll just highlight the bits that stuck out for me, because being an addict in recovery, I found this stuff was really helpful. So obsession and preoccupation. Relapse typically starts with lifestyle imbalance. Stress and neglect take their toll. Man, we are in a pretty stressful time in the world, something that we've never seen before. And so sobriety challenges will start to appear for all of us. Familiar refrains lead to impaired thinking. I deserve it. I want what I want when I want it. Damn the consequences, full speed ahead. I would say right now that you could see some real good self-pity ones in here. Ones around, what's the point anyway? And looks like we're all doomed. And one won't hurt. I'll just have a look. Would all fit in here. Urges and cravings creep in, and they start feeding the preoccupation, the fantasy. The bit that really stuck out for me is the addict starts to distort reality, and denial and delusion then partner up with obsession. So this distortion of reality then links in with obsession. So we're not seeing reality clearly, and that gives us permission to really get the preoccupation happening. That leads to realization. Boundaries begin to collapse when addicts start to test themselves. Cruising on neighborhoods associated with acting out, calling erotic massage providers for escort services to ask for prices simply out of curiosity. The next one there is emailing or texting old lovers to say hello. But for you guys with drug addiction, gambling, downloading that app, just checking the form guide. It's just looking back in. The line I love here, and I didn't highlight it, was active addicts typically do not have the coping strategies in place to deal with the ritualized behavior, but actually the piece I wanted, the line I wanted was above it. These tests take place on the edges of the old behavior. So even before we get to the old people, places, and things, those behaviors that were around the edges is where we start to look in, right? The sex addict that looks at not porn on YouTube and that at night. So the idea here that these tests take place at the edges of old behavior. Addicts that are active typically do not have the coping strategies to stop such ritualized behaviors, so we fall into it, we do more and more. Remember that the purpose of a ritual is to alter awareness and induce trance. And, you know, whenever you're in addiction, we're commonly asked by baffled loved ones, why? And this part here around, well, our awareness was altered, and we're now into this self-induced trance. Once an addict gets to this point, reality becomes fully distorted, and a loss of control is almost inevitable. And whenever I've worked with addictions and in family systems, and even tried to explain my addiction to my loved ones, it bewilders them, because it's like, gosh, where were you? Why would you do it? How can you have these life principles and ethics over here and still do that? And you know, what Carnes is trying to do here is just name what happens to us. So the loss of control is almost inevitable. You can never tell an addict that they're going to use, because they might just stay clean out of spite. But generally what he's saying there is, look, in active addiction, we rarely do have the coping strategies to last full on. And addicts are addicts. So we have compulsive use and impaired control problems, and continued use in spite of consequence. So, you know, I used to work, you know, working in treatment, I knew that addicts don't do things once. You know, we just don't do things once. So if we can catch someone straight up, we'd know that they're likely to repeat the behavior. So sexual compulsion, or for anyone out there, any compulsion, alcoholic, drug addiction, you know, so there's the compulsion sets in and despair. Once an initial slip occurs, addicts tend to say, I've gone this far, I might as well do the whole thing. A famous pioneer of relapse prevention, G. Malat, Malat called this the abstinence violation effect. And I see this a lot in sex addiction. Oh, I touch myself in the shower, I might as well go right through with it and call a sex worker. It's a relapse, we're back to day one. So he's saying be really careful about this, that in addictive thinking, the situation seems hopeless, which leads us to ongoing sobriety loss. So you know, trying to understand this, he uses that bolder analogy, and that the addiction cycle to graphically show the progression of relapse. And the more the addiction cycle engages, the harder it is to stay sober. And that's what he was trying to show us in that. So a couple of fast tips to try, you know, what do we do about that? We don't just hang on and hope it doesn't happen. We've got to actively work in our recovery cycle. So resisting addictive cravings. We'll just go into these sort of some helpful points, and hopefully this will leave you on a high if you're noticing that you're in some of those, some of the progression of relapse right now, especially being at home. You can adapt any of these strategies to work in isolation. The obvious place to start to keep the boulder is to keep the boulder from rolling in the first place, following some suggestions for building up your barrier to the slippery slope of relapse. So one here, develop spiritual strategies, meditation, yoga, prayer, or whatever strategies help you connect with yourself and the rhythm of the universe, you know, need to be deepened, strengthened, and practiced. You know, the old practice makes perfect is not a bumper sticker for no reason. You know, we need to practice meditation, practice prayer. Yoga is a practice. Number one on almost everyone's list is a spiritual base. This is a calm center that helps you resist turmoil on the periphery. And a good meditation for that, to really teach you that concept, is Dan Siegel's meditation. And holy smokes, this would be good to remember it right now. I only uploaded it the other day. It's where he gets into the hub and you look out and you do the 5 senses and your body and the environment. It's very cool. I'll try and see if I remember it before the end of the video. I'll certainly put in the comments later on. So decode feelings. You know, lots of addicts are really using to avoid feelings. So sex, any form of acting out or addiction, it's not about the acting out. In this case, sexuality, it's usually accompanied by feelings of shame, loneliness, fear, pain, and anger. Always check for these feelings. Remember that to act out a feeling sexually does not resolve the feeling. If you cannot decode your feelings, consult with a sponsor or a therapist or group members. Remember the old 12-step aphorism, horniness equals loneliness, and I would say that any addiction, we're really just trying to escape and medicate. So if we can sit with and learn to identify those feelings, we'll be in good stead. Just shrink this a little. Avoid trigger situations, the old identify situations, people and circumstances that can trigger addictive responses. Respect your powerlessness and avoid those triggers. Remember, when in doubt, don't. We have a brain disorder, spiritual calamity, you know, so the idea of testing ourselves is just crazy. Well, all I'm testing is, will my brain respond as it would in an MRI if I trigger myself? Yes, it will, right? So, so if we can, we either avoid those, or for people in recovery, we bookend them with recovery support systems. Forgive yourself for slips. If a slip occurs, turn it into a learning experience. Be gentle with yourself. Your shame will cause you to beat up on yourself, which will only make you more vulnerable. And guess what we do with vulnerability? So if we can, practicing loving kindness, relapse can sometimes happen in recovery. Reach out, get support. Avoid keeping cravings secret. Keeping your cravings secret will add to the power, or their power. When you feel like acting out, go to the people you trust, so you are not alone. In general, secrets are about shame, and shame always makes you more vulnerable. Secrets will separate you from others in recovery. So if you can, quickly get some people you can start to trust and tell them the awkward details. And believe me, they're awkward details. Working on nurturing yourself, exercise, walk, eat well, rest, enjoy therapeutic massages, baths, safe indulgences. Seek out nature, music, art, humor, and the companionship of good friends. Find time to take care of yourself and make your living space a cocoon for your transformation. You deserve this treatment. I've seen it happen a lot in recovery. People really make their their spaces nice. Like, I've got things around this room that really, they're either about music that I love, or places that I've been that I love, and they evoke good memories in recovery. Pictures of my higher power, and things that really, that sword I bought with Rex McCann, it's from New Zealand, essentially man, and is a sacred teacher in the world now. Those are the things that are around this space is really important to me. Please make that space important for you at home. Finding alternative passions, practice hobbies, sports, and activities you enjoy. Cultivate these parts of your life so that compulsive patterns and obsessing or acting out have to compete with activities and interests that are rewarding, and alternative passions become new arenas for growth. And acknowledge your choices. Avoid the feeling that you're a victim. It's true that you're powerless over your addiction, but you are in charge of your program of recovery and your lifestyle. In most areas, you have choices which can help you achieve balance, the balance needed in your life. So be proactive instead of reactive, and by acknowledging to yourself and to others, what your choices are. So look, I hope this little video was helpful. It just stuck out to me. I'd mentioned it to a few people through the week, and I thought, well, I haven't made a video for a while. We are in isolation. So I hope that this anatomy of a relapse and sort of how to deal with cravings and triggers can be useful. Stay safe. Please reach out. Lots of support at the moment. You can do most things online. I did a yoga session in the floor behind me today with my yoga teacher online, that she's moved everything online. So we're living a trying time, but the world is responding with solutions. So take care and be careful with your heart.